Engine computers, 2011 Toyota Camry. I went eBay shopping, the customer went eBay shopping. Now we have 4 more engine computers to try out. Hopefully we won't burn through all of them before we find the root cause of what's causing the engine computers to burn out. The 5-volt reference apparently is affected. So computer number 1, this is one I got. First check we're going to do is a resistance check on that 5-volt reference line to ground, to that one ground wire where the bad ECMs are shorted to. So this is again pin 9, or the 9th one in this row, going to this one. You see the meter, about 202 ohms, so we know the 5-volt reference is good. On this computer, it does look a little crusty there, but let's program this one in. And before starting the car, I want to hook up an oscilloscope to the 5-volt reference and the ignition coil control wires. Is something spiking this engine computer? That's the only thing I can think of is those NGK coils. So hopefully we see something on the scope before the next computer burns out. The last one burned down about 15 seconds, and it set coil control fault codes. So, and then there's no ignition, no control pulse on the coils. So let's program this one in. It'll take half an hour to relearn the key, and we'll get set up. Alright, well here we go. It's been half an hour. The next replacement computer should be programmed. 3 channels on the PICO scope. What are we going to measure? So channel 1 is going to be the IGT, or the trigger for ignition coil number 1. Channel 2 is the IGF, that's the ignition confirmation signal coming from all 4 coils. That's a Toyota thing. Comes in on this brown wire right here. Channel 3 is that 5-volt reference wire that we cut going to the idle air, whatever, runner control valve, just to monitor the 5-volt reference. So 3 channels. Let's fire it up. If we see anything crazy, we'll just shut it right down. Alright, so we still have our jumper installed. Shut the key off. Take the jumper out. There we go, 5-volt reference turned off. So IGT, IGF, and 5-volt reference. Let's start from scratch. Key on. 5-volt reference is up. Let's see if it starts. Seems normal. Count the seconds. Is it misfiring a little bit? Right there. Alright, I'm going to shut it down. 5-volt reference is still good. Now let's see what, is there a spike, a correlation where an ignition event spiked the computer? Let me save this and we'll analyze it. Alright, this is extremely interesting. Look at this waveform. See the green trace? This is supposed to be solid 5 volts. Look what's going on right here. See this little kickback? Why is that happening? And it seems to be right before cylinder 1 trigger, very repeatable. So by the firing order, we can say, which cylinder is which. And let's see, do we have any big glitches here? Right there, I don't like that. Look at that. That occurred right before cylinder number 1. So this 5-volt reference is getting spiked pretty consistently by the same ignition coil right before cylinder number 1. So this Without a scope, zero chance of diagnosing this vehicle. You would burn up 100 computers. NGK coils, they're only 3 years old. You think everything's good. So let's pinpoint exactly which cylinder it is that's, causing these spikes on the 5-volt reference. I might have an ignition coil in stock, or we'll make one work. Replace it. We can even move the coil to a different cylinder. That's easy to do. See if the spike follows the coil, and then we'll know for sure that it's a bad coil. So this is fantastic. Perfect example of data-driven diagnostics, right? Why did the previous computer burn up and set ignition coil codes across the board? Perhaps that driver got spiked. This one, we shut it off before it got out of hand, but it did run longer than 15 seconds. For the owner, it ran for 4 or 5 minutes, but then the 5-volt reference dropped out completely. Okay? But we have a really good clue now, so I'm happy we did this oscilloscope measurement. Alright, so I have to Google the 2AR FE firing order because all data didn't have it for some reason, and it is the classic 4-cylinder 1342. So 134 to 134. So the cylinder before our trigger, before cylinder 1, is cylinder 2. So let's mark these coils. One, 2, 3, 4, like that. And let's just, should we swap numbers 2 and 3? See if the spike moves. So right now it's before the one that we're triggered off on the scope. If we swap 2 and 3, it'll be 1, 3, 4. It should be after this one. So let's swap 2 and 3, see what happens. Alright, so the coils look mint. So let's put number 3 in the number 2 slot. Number 2 with the X in the number 3 slot. And repeat our little experiment with the scope. The nice thing about hooking up a scope is, for the next experiment, you're all ready to go. Just fire up the car and record the data. So now we expect if this coil is bad, we should expect to see that little glitch after the number 1 trigger, not before. Alright, here we go. This is the save waveform. Start fresh, key on. Feel a little misfire. I'm not going to push it. You can feel the misfire. So, let's see. Yep, there it is. There's our little spike. Now it's occurring after the trigger every single time. Every single time. Okay, let me see if I have a Denso spare coil in stock. Look at that. Swap 2 and 3. The spike on the 5-volt reference moved to after our number 1 trigger. So that coil is definitely messed up. Turns out I do have the appropriate Denso coil in stock. It's a 673-1309. Let's compare. These also fit the V6 model. They do go bad occasionally. So, yep, identical. So let's pop this one in and make sure there's no glitch on the 5-volt reference. Then we'll let the car run for 10 minutes and hopefully it'll stay running and we can take it for a test drive and verify the repair. Now it will need 4 new ignition coils because you can't trust these NGKs apparently. Shame on NGK. Alright, here we go. One more time. This is with the new Denso coil installed. Yay! No more misfire. But you're gonna let it run. We'll scan it for codes. Let's see. Look at that clean 5-volt reference. You know, there's an occasional little spike maybe, but that's, you know, that's 1 point. It's not that actual high voltage signal getting through like before. Let's take a look right here. See, those are just single points there. No big deal. There's one little glitch right there. So we replaced this coil right here. Number 1's the trigger. Number 3 is now the replacement coil. So we're going to recommend all new coils right off the bat. But right now we don't see any other anomalies. Looks fine. So I'm going to save this as no good with the Denso coil. We'll just let it run and take this thing for a spin. Alright, so everything's buttoned up under the hood. Let's clear out all the trouble codes. I resoldered that wire for so 3 permanent codes, okay. Yeah, let's just turn the key off, turn the key on, fires right up. Good throttle response. So everything's buttoned up here. We got 1 new ignition coil. I got 3 more coming from Rock Auto, Denso brand. Do not buy NGK. After this, no more NGK coils, Denso only. So let's let it idle here for about 10 minutes. Make sure we don't get stranded and take this thing for a spin. Hopefully it's fixed. Alright, so far so good. It's been 10 minutes. No trouble codes. Let's take this puppy for a spin. Alright, made it to the end of the lane. Running great. Let's see how it accelerates. Nice and peppy. No problems. So can we call this one fixed? I think we can. How about that case study? Never would have guessed it. And I asked the owner, where did you buy these ignition coils? He said, Rock Auto in 2021. So 4 years ago he bought these NGK coils. And apparently one of them started leaking the high voltage to the 5-volt reference. The IGT or the IGF. Either way, the computer's getting spiked and didn't last long, so that was the root cause of the initial ECM failure. And then how many did we go through? Where the owner went through 3, and the last one we finished off with that set of different, ignition coil control faults. And the first eBay one that I bought was the ticket, because we were careful this time and we had the scope to look at the data and figure out exactly what was going on, which coil it was that was spiking the 5-volt reference. No other issues with the car. All the other sensors are perfectly fine. So the only aftermarket part on the car was the root cause of the problem. Pretty crazy. So yeah, I recommend replace the coils with Denso. Only Denso original, OEM equivalent parts, or go to the dealer and buy the Toyota part. So I think that's it for this one. I'm sure the owner has been waiting a few weeks to get his car back. He'll be excited. How did you charge for this? I charged 3 hours of diagnostics and one hour of other labor, replacing coils and just random stuff. So 4 hours total. I think that's fair. This is not an easy one to pinpoint. And we only burned up 1 computer, so not bad at all. Thanks all for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. So in a 2011 Toyota Camry, we got some more Denso coils from Rock Auto to replace these NGKs. So the one that was bad, burning up the engine computers, we already replaced, so we need 3 more. And I'm going to send these coils off to the NGK Research and Development Center so they can do some failure analysis on it. And then once they update me, we'll post this at the end of the video to see what the failure mode was and if they're doing any improvements to make these coils last longer, or at least not to backfeed through the 5-volt reference and cook the engine computer. You know, if a coil fails, 9 times out of 10 it just causes a misfire. But in this case, the failure was, apparently a misfire and spiking the engine computer, which is really bad. So we'll do an update on that, but let's put these coils in, make sure it runs perfectly, and return the car back to the customer. By the way, before we pop the new Denso coils in, you might ask, what do the spark plugs look like? Maybe the spark plug got worn and caused the coil to overload. They look mint. These are NGK iridiums, so at least they know how to make a great spark plug. That's all I use for spark plugs is NGK. So the coil failure was unrelated to the spark plug itself or the car. It just failed. Alrighty, 4 brand new Denso OEM coils installed. Let's make sure it runs great. Take it for a little test drive and return it back to the customer. And I'm really curious to see what NGK is going to find in their failure analysis. So stay tuned for that. But that's it for this one. Crazy case study. Never seen that before. Coil cooking engine computers. Like 5 minutes of runtime, boom, dead computer. We got 15 seconds out of the third one. And then finally the PICO scope caught the culprit there. So crazy stuff. The waveforms will be in the description. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye. Hi everyone. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that Labor Day special with the crazy Toyota Camry that kept frying engine computers. Holy crap, I've never seen that before in my life, and we'll probably never see that again. So what was the root cause? A defective ignition coil. Like I said, never seen this before. An ignition coil can cause the computer to shut down. We've seen this on, usually it's on 2-wire coils where the driver lives inside the engine computer. On 3 or 4-wire coils, the driver is, 5-volt pulse, and the actual transistor driver is inside of the ignition coil. And those coils do fail. They usually just cause a misfire, you replace the coil, and you go on your way. In this case, the engine, 4 engine computers down the drain before actually catching the, the culprit with the PICO scope. That was probably one of the coolest captures I've taken to pinpoint where this voltage spike was coming from. Now, what's the follow-up? So it's been 4 months since the repair, and the car, the owner said the car is driving great on the 4 Denso coils. No issues there. And I reached out to NGK. I actually met one of their representatives at a training conference. This is why training events are so great to attend. Networking, you get to meet people in the industry, make connections, and in this case, I reached out to the representative and asked them, can I send you the defective ignition coils? I'll just send them all 4, and can you guys bench test these and tell me what went wrong? I know the coil is bad, I know it cooked the engine computer, but can you do an actual engineering bench test and see why this happened? So it took them a few months, and actually I had a conference call with them, with the engineer who did the testing, and they stress tested all the coils, and sure enough, coil number 2, it was only putting out 10 kilovolts, so not enough on the high voltage side, and they put it under a thermal camera, and there was a hot spot developing. The coil itself is in the spark plug well, and there was a short, and apparently the short was between the high voltage side and the primary side, and that was backfeeding and spiking the engine computer on the control wire. They said they've never seen this failure before. I've never seen it before, but nothing's perfect, so this coil did fail in a very bizarre way. Not a traditional coil failure here, in that cooked engine computers. So, you know, I don't want to knock NGK here. Obviously, that coil is defective. It lasted only 4 years. I expected, you know, more. So that left a bad taste in my mouth in terms of parts. I've always bought Denso coils for Japanese vehicles, and so far, no failures. But in terms of customer service and follow-up, NGK, kudos to you guys. They, you know, collected the data. They said they love feedback in terms of parts failure to improve the design. So I really respect that, and thank you to Carl, Tyler, and Philip for you know, doing this conference call. It really meant a lot. So, you know, shout out to NGK. I don't know what other company would have done that. So that was great. So leave your comments down below. Let me know if you've ever seen a similar failure like this. Just bizarre. And how do you catch it without cooking 15 engine computers? Well, we got lucky, because the first 3 computers, you know, the owner installed 2. The 5-volt reference went bad after 5 minutes. The third one we installed, it ran for 15 seconds and set coil control codes. And that was a clue to focus on these ignition coils, because the 5-volt reference was still alive and we could read the codes. So it was a different failure mode. Crazy. And then finally, the last computer was strong enough to run and get some good data while being spiked by coil number 2. And it survived long enough to find the culprit, replace the coil, and the car's running on that replacement computer. So that's it for this one. Stay tuned for a lot more case studies coming up. I have about a 2-month backlog here, so I'm trying to get the videos out. But appreciate everyone watching. Hope everyone had a great Labor Day, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.